The data was provided as part of a response to a written question submitted in Parliament by Conservative MP Billy Moran. In a recent interview with APTN News, opposition critic for Crown Indigenous Relations Jamie Schmale said, "The numbers show there continues to be big problems with fraudulent abuse of the government's Indigenous procurement program."
As we found out through a study in the previous Parliament, there was fraud being taken place, in particular the Arrive Can or the Arrive Scam app that showed that there was massive fraud in that whole program, and the fact that there was very little, if any, Indigenous participation in that, and yet there were companies claiming Indigenous identity.
But Canadian Council for Indigenous Business CEO Tabitha Bull has a different take. She noted of the businesses removed, only a small percentage, 78 businesses, were taken off because they did not meet the eligibility criteria. Bull said a much larger group are legitimate, but were removed from the list because the government was unable to make contact.
There were many First Nation individual-owned businesses listed there, community-owned businesses listed there, businesses that we know that are legitimate Indigenous businesses. And then, when you really go and look into the reasons and see that there was a very small percentage actually that didn't meet the certification requirements. Interesting, nowhere does it have a category called fraudulent.
Abuse of the government's Indigenous procurement contracting system has been a hot topic in recent years, with media stories of various companies misrepresenting themselves in order to get on the list. However, one thing both Bull and Schmale agree on is the need to take the verification process for Indigenous businesses out of the government's hands.
There are lots of Indigenous organizations already set up that have offered to help. They have come to us. They, I would assume, went to the government and had the same conversations, which has let us be involved. Indigenous identity is what we do. This is something that can be done with organizations already set up. We don't need a new bureaucracy. We can lean on Indigenous organizations themselves, entities that have proven track records.
Bull said it is something her organization has been lobbying the government on for years.
I think it should be held by an Indigenous organization. We look at, an example in Australia where they have an organization called Supply Nation that does this, and that the government then does their purchases through that marketplace. I think we're 8 years in that discussion of how it would be transferred to an organization or various organizations.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.